The galaxy was not a kind place. Vast, ancient, and teeming with life, it was also fragile. For centuries, the Galactic Council had held peace together with diplomacy, trade, and an unspoken reliance on the docility of its member species. But the arrival of the Krex swarm shattered that fragile illusion. The swarm was relentless, a biomechanical horde with no interest in treaties or negotiations. Entire sectors burned as they advanced, devouring civilizations that had stood for millennia. From the Council's glittering capital on Zeveris Prime, the Trell ambassador, Darin, stood before the assembly. Her usually serene features were drawn tight with fear. The swarm has breached the Zarin sector. 15 core worlds have fallen. If Darin's reach falls, the heart of the Trell Empire will follow. She paused, her voice cracking. We must send the signal. A murmur rippled through the assembly. The signal, a desperate plea encoded in every major galactic language, would summon the one species the Council had deliberately kept at arm's length. Humanity. They are too dangerous, hissed a representative from the Rethi coalition. They are predators from a death world. If we invite them in, we risk unleashing a new threat. They are our last hope. Darin snapped, her voice rising. Have you forgotten the rumors of their capabilities? Their resilience? Their ruthlessness? The chamber fell silent. Everyone knew the stories. Humanity was a relative newcomer to the galactic stage, having emerged from a small, isolated system on the fringes of Council space. Their homeworld, Earth, was classified as a Category 5 death world, a planet so hostile that few species could survive there for long. Its atmosphere was turbulent, its ecosystems violent, and its inhabitants even more so. Yet humanity thrived. Their resilience was unmatched, their ingenuity terrifying. But it was their capacity for war that set them apart. Unlike the other Council species, humanity had evolved amid constant conflict. To the peaceful galactic community, humans were as much a threat as the swarm. Enough, the Speaker of the Assembly declared. The decision is made. Send the signal. Light years away, aboard the UNS Resolute, Captain Elisa Moreau stared at the transmission. The voice was alien, pleading, and urgent. The swarm's movements were no mystery to humanity. They had been monitoring the threat for years, aware of the devastation unfolding just beyond their borders. But this, an invitation, however reluctant, from the Galactic Council? That was new. The Resolute's bridge was silent, its crew waiting for her decision. Commander Eric Shaw, her second-in-command, broke the tension. We could ignore it, he said. They've spent decades keeping us at a distance, calling us dangerous. Now they want our help. Moreau didn't answer immediately. She tapped her fingers against the armrest of her chair, her sharp eyes fixed on the holographic display of the swarm's advance. Their fear of us doesn't matter. What matters is the swarm. If they reach our borders, they won't stop. Earth is on their path. Every colony we've built is on their path. Shaw frowned. So we help them, and what? Hope they suddenly trust us? We don't do this for trust, Moreau said firmly. We do it because it's the right thing to do, and because no one else can. She stood, her voice carrying across the bridge. We've trained for this. Every drill, every simulation, every war game has been leading to a moment like this. The galaxy is asking for Deathworlders to stand and fight. Let's show them why they feared us in the first place. A cheer rippled through the crew, their resolve crystallizing in that moment. Humanity had never been invited into the galactic community. But now it didn't matter. They were going, and they were going to win. The Resolute's fleet began to assemble within hours. Ships of every class and size, bristling with weapons and experimental technology, converged at the designated rally point. News of the mission spread quickly, drawing volunteers from every corner of human space. Scientists, soldiers, medics, all of them answered the call. As the final preparations were made, Moreau addressed the fleet. Her holographic image was broadcast to every ship, her voice steady and commanding. Humanity was born on a world that tried to kill us every day. We've survived floods, droughts, plagues, and wars. And when we looked to the stars, we found even greater challenges. But we never stopped. We adapted. We thrived. Now the galaxy calls us dangerous. Let them. We are dangerous, to those who threaten life, to those who believe might makes right. The swarm thinks it can destroy us all. Let's show them what Deathworlders can do. The fleet surged forward, engines roaring to life as the stars stretched into streaks of light. The galaxy would never be the same. The Krek swarm had no ambassadors, no diplomats, and no need for words. They were a force of nature, a relentless tide of destruction that consumed everything in its path. Entire star systems had fallen in their wake, leaving barren, lifeless husks where vibrant civilizations once thrived. To those who survived the swarm's initial assault, the hive mind's singular purpose became clear: assimilation or annihilation. On the rim of the Zarin sector, the battle for Darin's Reach raged. Darin's Reach was a critical hub, connecting the outer colonies of the Trell Empire to its central worlds. If it fell, the swarm would have a direct path to the Trell capital and the heart of the Galactic Council's fragile coalition. The Trell fleet fought valiantly, their sleek, crystalline ships darting through the void like living beings. Energy shields shimmered and flared under the swarm's relentless assault, their weapons blazing in defiance. But it wasn't enough. The swarm's ships were unlike anything the Trell had ever faced: massive, grotesque amalgamations of organic tissue and mechanical appendages. They moved like predators, coordinating with terrifying precision. For every Krek's ship destroyed, two more seemed to take its place. Their weapons were brutal. Bioplasma cannons melted through shields, and swarms of smaller, parasitic craft latched onto enemy ships, tearing through their hulls like flesh. On the bridge of the Trellian Ascendant, Admiral Kieran Voss clenched his mandibles in frustration. "Redirect power to the forward shields," he barked. "We hold this line, no matter the cost." His officers obeyed without question, but the despair in their eyes was clear. They had already lost half their fleet. Civilians on Darin's Reach were being evacuated as quickly as possible, but time was running out. "Admiral," one of his officers called out, her voice trembling, "new contacts on the long-range scanners. They're human." For a moment, Voss didn't respond. The Galactic Council's distress signal had been sent days ago, but he had doubted it would reach the Deathworlders in time, or that they would even respond. "Put them through," he ordered. The display flickered to life, revealing the face of Captain Elisa Moreau. Her expression was calm but focused, her voice steady. "Admiral Voss, this is Captain Moreau of the UNS Resolute. We're en route to Darin's Reach with a fleet of allied ships. Hold your position. Reinforcements are coming." Voss hesitated, his compound eyes narrowing. You think your fleet can stop this?" He gestured to the chaos outside. Moreau's lips curved into a grim smile. "Stopping it isn't the question. The question is how much of it we can destroy." Before Voss could reply, the display cut out. Moments later, the human fleet emerged from hyperspace. Their arrival was nothing short of spectacular. Massive human warships appeared in perfect formation, their hulls bristling with weaponry. Smaller, faster ships darted out ahead, deploying autonomous drones that swarmed toward the Kreks like angry hornets. Without hesitation, the humans engaged. Railgun slugs tore through Krek's ships with devastating force, while kinetic weapons turned enemy vessels into debris fields. Human fighters moved with an aggression and precision that seemed almost reckless, overwhelming the swarm's parasitic craft. On the bridge of the Ascendant, Voss watched in stunned silence. The Deathworlders fought like predators, their tactics brutal and efficient. Yet, there was something awe-inspiring about their determination, a refusal to retreat, no matter the odds. For the first time in weeks, Voss allowed himself a glimmer of hope. The Deathworlders had arrived, and the galaxy's deadliest species was proving why it was feared. Darin's Reach burned. The Krek swarm had transformed the once thriving trade hub into a war-torn battleground. The planet's orbital docks were reduced to floating wreckage, and the civilian evacuation effort teetered on the edge of collapse. Yet, for the first time in weeks, there was a shift in the tide. Humanity's fleet struck the swarm like a meteor. Their ships, designed for battle in the harshest environments, moved with precision and brutality. The UNS Resolute led the charge, a massive dreadnought bristling with railguns, missile batteries, and advanced energy weapons. Behind it, destroyers and frigates maneuvered with a coordination that stunned even the most seasoned Trell officers. On the bridge of the Resolute, Captain Elisa Moreau surveyed the chaos through the ship's main display. "Target their hive ships first," she ordered, her voice calm but firm. "Without their central coordination, the swarm will falter." The hive ships were monstrous structures, the size of small moons, pulsating with biomechanical energy. They served as both command centers and factories for the Krex forces, churning out wave after wave of reinforcements. Destroying them was the key to victory, but it was no small task. "Railgun batteries locked," announced Commander Shaw, firing in 3, 2, 1. The Resolute's railguns fired, unleashing hyper-accelerated projectiles that tore through the vacuum of space. The first slug hit its mark, ripping through the hull of a hive ship and sending chunks of organic debris spiraling outward. A second shot followed, detonating its core in a brilliant explosion. Across the battlefield, the rest of the human fleet mirrored the Resolute's precision. Their weapons were brutal and efficient, designed to maximize destruction with minimal wasted energy. But it wasn't just the firepower that set the humans apart. It was their tactics. Unlike the Trell, who relied on static formations and energy shields, humanity fought with fluidity. Swarms of autonomous drones darted into enemy lines, targeting weak points with surgical precision. Smaller human ships lured Krex vessels into traps, where larger cruisers obliterated them with devastating broadsides. On the Trellian Ascendant, Admiral Kieran Voss watched in awe. The Deathworlders were unlike anything he had ever seen. Their methods were unorthodox, even reckless by Trell standards, but they were undeniably effective. "Admiral," one of his officers said, her voice filled with wonder, "the swarm's formation is breaking. They're retreating." But Voss saw what the officer did not. The swarm wasn't retreating, it was regrouping. The hive mind was adapting, redirecting its forces to protect its remaining hive ships. "Inform Captain Moreau," Voss ordered. "The swarm is concentrating on their hive cores. If we don't act quickly, they'll overwhelm us." Moreau's response was immediate. "Understood, Admiral. We'll finish this before they can regroup." The humans escalated their assault. Massive orbital bombardments targeted key swarm clusters, while ground teams launched daring strikes against planetary hives. On the surface of Darin's reach, humanity's soldiers fought with the same ferocity as their fleet, wielding advanced exosuits and weapons that turned even the most desperate battles in their favor. By the time the last hive ship detonated, the battlefield was eerily quiet. The swarm was shattered, its forces scattered and disorganized. But the cost was clear. Human and Trell ships alike drifted as lifeless hulks, casualties of a battle that had pushed both species to their limits. Back on the Resolute, Moreau sat in her chair, her expression grim. "Status report," she said quietly. "Minimal survivors among the Trell fleet," Shaw replied. "Our losses, significant. But Darin's reach is secure." Moreau nodded, her eyes fixed on the debris-strewn void. The battle was won, but the war was far from over. For humanity, this was only the beginning. For the galaxy, it was a stark reminder. The Deathworlders had arrived, and they were not to be underestimated. The skies over Darin's reach were no longer alight with plasma fire and explosions. For the first time in weeks, silence blanketed the system, punctuated only by the occasional signal from rescue teams scouring the wreckage. The Krex swarm had been driven back, but the cost of victory was staggering. Aboard the UNS Resolute, Captain Elisa Moreau stood before a holodeble in the war room. The faces of her senior officers and Admiral Kieran Voss flickered in holographic projection. The Trell Admiral's expression was inscrutable, but the tension in his mandibles betrayed his unease. "Your tactics were effective," Voss admitted, his voice measured. "I've never seen the swarm falter like this." "They're not invincible," Moreau said. "The swarm operates on coordination and momentum. Take out their hive ships and their forces collapse. But this was just one battle. They'll adapt, and next time they'll come back stronger." Voss hesitated, His pride as a Trell military leader clashed with the undeniable reality that humanity had saved his people. "We owe you a debt," he said finally. "One the Trell Empire will not forget." "I didn't come here for debts," Moreau replied. "We came because the swarm is everyone's problem. If we don't fight together, none of us survive." The words hung in the air, uncomfortably direct yet undeniably true. For decades, the Galactic Council had regarded humanity with fear and mistrust, keeping them at the fringes of galactic politics. Now, with the Krex swarm threatening to consume everything, it was clear that humanity's strength was not just a danger, it was a necessity. On the surface of Darin's Reach, the aftermath of the battle was laid bare. Once thriving cities had been reduced to rubble, their inhabitants scattered or killed in the swarm's initial assault. Rescue operations were underway, with human and Trell teams working side by side to locate survivors and recover resources. Lieutenant Nadia Vega of the Resolute led one such team through the ruins of a Trell enclave. Her exosuit sensors scanned for life signs, guiding her through the wreckage. Behind her, a squad of Trell soldiers followed, their crystalline armor glinting in the pale sunlight. "This way," Vega said, her voice steady despite the devastation around her. The Trell soldiers exchanged glances but followed. Like many of their kind, they had grown up hearing stories of humanity's ruthlessness, their predatory nature. Yet, watching Vega and her team risk their lives to save civilians, Trell civilians, forced them to reconsider. As they pulled a young Trell child from the rubble, the squad leader, Sergeant the Rix, spoke hesitantly. "You don't have to do this," he said. "Your duty was in space. The ground is our responsibility." Vega looked at him sharply. "And let your people die? Not a chance. We're in this together now, whether you like it or not." The Rix didn't respond immediately. Instead, he watched as Vega cradled the child, her expression softening. "Thank you," he said finally, the words feeling foreign on his tongue. Back aboard the Resolute, Moreau stood in her quarters, staring out at the shattered planet below. The victory at Darin's Reach had bought them time, but the weight of the galaxy's expectations pressed heavily on her shoulders. A chime sounded, and Commander Shaw entered. "The Council's emissaries are on their way," he said. "They want to formalize humanity's role in the coalition." Moreau snorted. "Formalize? They want us to clean up their messes." "Probably," Shaw said with a shrug. "But it's more than that. They need us, Elisa." The swarm scared them enough to admit it. She nodded, her resolve hardening. "Then we'll show them what humanity can do, not just in war but in rebuilding. If they're willing to trust us, we'll give them a reason to believe in something better." As the Resolute prepared to depart, Moreau knew the battle for Darin's Reach was only the first chapter in a much larger war. Humanity had stepped onto the galactic stage, and they would not retreat.